Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fatima Azara Panrungi from Group 6 of the course Law. Today, for my civics presentation, I will be talking about execution versus human rights. My group was given the topic to talk about how human rights is implemented in today's world, and I will be talking about one of the most controversial debates in current ages, which is executions versus human rights, and how executions is a direct violation to human rights itself. So first of all, what is an execution? An execution is a form of criminal punishment that is given to convicted fellows or criminals that is considered to be harmful enough to be executed for the greater good of the people itself. How about human rights? Human rights is the declaration of sorts of rights that are given to a human or a person since birth all the way to their death and must not ever be disturbed. Human rights is history. Human rights has been declared and has been fought for the longest time. The most specific or the more particular history does not exist clearly because human rights has been fought for so long, and some religious texts even proclaim that they have fought for human rights since the beginning ages of humanity itself. But the ones that are historically coded or historically written are, the first one is the 1215 Magna Charta in England. The 1215 Magna Charta in England is a revelation by the British Baron family to the royal family about their rights as a citizen. This happened because the Baron families were given such a huge amount of taxes that they were forced into poverty and making them having to marry their daughters into commoners, which is unacceptable for aristocrats of Britain at the time. And then after that, there's also the 1628 Petition of Rights in England as well, by the British commoners that petitioned for the king to publicly acknowledge their rights as a citizen and as a human being in United Kingdom itself. They petitioned for the king to publicly acknowledge these rights in front of the Supreme Court and as well as in front of every single aristocrat present in the United Kingdom. Then in 1670, the Habeas Corpus Act that also happened in England. The Habeas Corpus Act was the king's order to make a regulation about legal certainty in arrestment. Basically, the king ordered that when one person is arrested or detained, they must clearly tell what crime they have committed and how long they will be detained for and how long the court will proceed. This is basically the same as the principle of law that we now know as legal certainty and the principle of legality, in which if you want to arrest a person or if you want to arrest a suspect, this suspect must know exactly why are they arrested and how long will they be proceeding in court or how long will they be proceeding in court hearings. And then, of course, in 1776, particularly in 4th July 1776, is the United States of America's Declaration of Independence. In the United States of America's Declaration of Independence, America also featured a few passages about human rights as a whole, particularly about freedom and how every single citizen has the freedom to be alive and as well as to have a proper job and many other more that has been declared in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And then there's also in 1789, the Declaration of des droits de l'homme et du citoyen, also known as the Declaration of the Rights of Men and Citizens in France. In France, this Declaration of Human Rights contained 5 different principles that will eventually be added into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. One of these principles being the principle of the rights of being alive and as well as the rights to defend their own life. Now, human rights implementation. In its implementation, human rights has been implemented in not only Indonesian law, but also in international law. In Indonesian law, for example, it is implemented in our constitution, particularly Article 28A all the way to Article 29I, which is a form of acknowledgement by the Indonesian government to the universal human rights itself. Now, number 2 is Law number 39 of 1999, which is a set of regulations that further explains about the Constitution Article 28A all the way to 29I. And then in international law, we also have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, was declared in 1948 and consists of 8 different human rights declarations, one of them being the rights to be alive and the rights to defend their own life. These declarations were agreed to by every single member of the United Nations. And then there's also International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, also declared by the United Nations. This covenant further explains about the Universal Declaration of Rights that we're only talking about the 8 general rights, while this covenant explains the regulations further into deeper and more detailed understanding. Now, what's the big controversy? The big controversy is human rights versus executions. Executions, meaning that every single suspect that is deemed to be guilty will be executed. However, the big issue here is that for example, in Indonesian law, in our Constitution, Article 28A, it is said that each individual has the rights to be alive and the right to protect their life. This statement is also supported by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, particularly on Article 3, also stating that each human has the right to be alive and the right to protect their lives. As well as Constitution Article 28I, is this emphasizement of Article 28A. The controversy here being that this regulation is a direct execution is a direct violation to these acts, to these 3 acts, because every human deserves the right to protect their lives. However, if an execution is committed, these rights is automatically violated because they are immediately taken away from the individual itself and they must be forced into execution, which is a direct violation to the passage, the right to protect their life, in which every individual has the right to protect their life. But if they are executed or they are ordered to be executed, they will not, these rights of them will be stripped off, and this is a direct violation to these constitutions, which sparks a lot of debates by legal experts and as well as the common citizens itself of whether or not executions can be considered as a human, as for the greater good. But why is it a problem? Like I said earlier, it's because of this is a direct violation to the human rights. There's also the possibility of there being an unjust court resulting in the wrong suspect. The wrong suspect meaning that the person that will be executed is the wrong person and this person is innocent. Usually this happens in an unjust court or a court that releases a decision without an exact evidence or an exact proof. For example, would be the P.13 case in Germany, where P.13 accuses another person of writing in the Berlin Wall about how Hitler was a tyrant and how he is the cause of war, and this person was eventually executed. However, this case was debated through legal experts because, in all honesty, this person was talking about the truth and he was basically stating about his own opinion, which is one of the human rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights passages, where every individual has the right to declare their opinion and this opinion cannot be silenced. Now, the problem is that P.13 accuses the person and making this individual be executed because of his opinion, when his opinion is the exact truth and it's not in any way a lie. And then after that, P.13 was found guilty for murder under the Ally Law number 4. I don't quite remember what law, but it was under the Allied Law. And P.13 was immediately executed under the pretense of accomplice to murder. which is why executions itself is a huge problem, because there are possibilities of an unjust court, or there are possibilities of there being a wrong suspect, or a wrong, in this case, the wrong suspect will immediately become a victim to an unjust decision in which he will pay for with his life, which is why executions is a very controversial thing if we look at it from a human rights perspective. Is there a solution to this debate? At the moment, no. For now, there is no other alternatives of punishment that can be used for crimes that are so fatal that they must be punished through executions. However, we should, as the newest generation or the future generation, it is expected that we find a different form of punishment that does not violate the human rights and is as effective as execution itself in protecting the citizens from these sort of threats. For now, the solution that can be come out are some of the few solutions that can be used are: number one, implementing a throughout court in which every single fact and evidence that is brought to court must be proceeded very, very carefully to make sure that there will be no such thing as a wrong suspect. Number two is legal certainty, in which a suspect's crime, or if a suspect is captured, detained, or arrested, their crime must be explained and understood perfectly by the suspect, and to provide a legal certainty on exactly why he is being arrested. Number three, executions must be selective, in which not every single crime must result in an execution. Instead, this is also relating back to the covenant of international law from earlier that is stated by the UN, in which the UN, under Article 7 of that covenant, the UN specifically says that executions may be proceeded so long as the crime itself is very selective, and this crime itself is not something that is very likely, and this crime itself must be very fatal, such as treason or murder. And the final solution is, this is actually not a solution, but it's more of a suggestion. The suggestion is that a suspect that will be executed must be granted their final wish by the state as a sort of compensation for their human rights of being alive being taken away by them by the state itself. This suggestion has actually been used by many different states, such as United States of America and Japan, where they grant the criminal's last final wish before being executed. So that will be all for my presentations about execution and how execution is a direct violation to the human rights. Thank you very much for watching. I do apologize if there are any miswording or misinformation in this presentation, and I would be very welcome for any questions. Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Fatima Azara Panrungi from Group 6. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.